On this edition of the Watchmen Brief, Reggie Littlejohn joins us. Reggie is the president of Anti-Globalist International and Women's Rights Without Frontiers. She's also co-founder of the Sovereignty Coalition, and she has a whole lot to say on the WHO, the World Health Organization, and what's going on around the world when it comes to our sovereignty and our freedom. The one and only Reggie Littlejohn joins us on the Watchmen Brief straight ahead. Stay tuned. And welcome back to another edition of the Watchmen Brief. This is R.C. Williams. Juliana Ormond is on special assignment this week. Joining us now is Reggie Littlejohn. She is the founder of Anti-Globalist International and a bullhorn and strong voice for all things freedom. Reggie, welcome to the Watchmen Brief.
Thank you so very much. It's a pleasure to be here, RC.
You know, Reggie, we were talking off the air. We actually talked last week too about everything going on around the World Health Organization. They've signed this pandemic treaty. There's so much information, and I use that in quotes, flying around. With your expertise, can you kind of set the stage for us as to what's happening around the WHO, what that's going to mean for us as US citizens, and just kind of give us the dive on what all this means and what we need to be on the lookout for?
Okay, well, I want to start a little bit farther back than that just to give people the context about why I am so concerned about this. I'm an attorney. I represented a couple of Chinese refugees in the mid-90s in their cases for political asylum in the United States, and they were victims of the one-child policy, either forced abortion or forced sterilization. And I left the practice of law to found my first organization, which is still existing, Women's Rights Without Frontiers, to fight forced abortion in China, which, by the way, I mean, it's now under the three-child policy, but I believe it is still happening to, to ethnic minorities.
Hmm.
In any case, having battled the Chinese Communist Party since the mid-90s, when COVID hit, I was very alarmed to see the similar tactics being used and being rolled out by the World Health Organization that are used in China. And so that's when I founded a couple of organizations. One is I co-founded Sovereignty Coalition, and then I also founded Anti-Globalist International. So what do I mean about the similarities? First of all, you can tell the connection between the World Health Organization and China just by the fact that Tedros Ghebreyesus, who's the head of the World Health Organization, is heavily influenced by China, and he was basically parroting what the Chinese Communist Party was saying during the beginning of the pandemic. They said there's no human-to-human transmission, and he parroted that. They said there's no reason to stop flights from China, and they implied that it would almost be racist to do so. He parroted that. They said this was not a lab leak. This was came from a bat in a wet market. He parroted that. All of those three things have been proven to be absolutely false, but the World Health Organization, without questioning it, just delivered China's lines to the world, and the result is that there is human transmission, and the delay in stopping flights from China resulted in the entire world being infected with coronavirus from people flying out from China all over the world. And then China has the China model of how they were handling COVID, just like, forced vaccinations, mask mandates, vaccine mandates, quarantines. All of that was implemented all over the world to a greater or lesser extent. I mean, Australia was to a very great extent. But the thing that really concerned me, RC, was that the World Health Organization started pushing something which they were in the beginning, they called it a vaccine passport. I mean, they were just very upfront about it. And I co-founded an organization called the Stop Vaccine Passports Task Force. So now they call it a digital health ID. But in the international health regulations that passed on June 1st of 2024, so a year ago, there's a section of those that deals with everybody in the world has to have a mandatory health ID. And if you're in a developing country, it can be paper. If you're in a developed country, it's going to be digital. And these digital health IDs are currently have been rolled out starting in June of 2023. The WHO and the European Union started rolling these things out, and they say that this is just to to track your vaccination status, which is a problematic in and of itself. I mean,
Yeah.
because if they're doing that, and let's say your country does not require vaccinations, but another one does, and they're tracking it, you're not going to be able to travel unless you have, whatever vaccinations are required by the country that you're going into. But or it could be used even more coercively. Like, let's say that your country is having a vaccine campaign and you're not vaccinated, and then you've got this digital health ID on your phone. You might not be able to even go shop for food. You might not be able to even take a bus, much less a plane. I mean, it's a way of surveillance and control. But also, there was a video by Naomi Wolf where she said that these digital health IDs could serve as the same platform as the China social credit system.
Yeah.
That's where I became very, very concerned, because I'm very familiar with the China social credit system. So the way the China social credit system works is that they track everything about you. They have, facial recognition, they have real-time geolocation, so they know what you look like, they know where you are, they know where you work, they know where you live, they know all of your social media posts, they know your internet search history. And if you search for stuff in China that you're not supposed to search for, like Tiananmen Square massacre or something that's a sensitive issue, your social credit score is going to go down. They know your internet
Hmm.
spending history, everything you've ever bought, your criminal history, your medical history, your banks, your credit cards. Everything is put onto this app, and then they give you a score. And if you are somebody who always follows the rules, you're fully vaccinated, you never criticize the government, you never jaywalk, okay, you can have a high score that will lead you to that you can appear to lead a normal life. However, if you criticize the government, if you don't get vaccinated, which in China they'll just drag you out and forcibly vaccinate you, but if you put up any kind of resistance, your score will go down and you can be punished. So first level of punishment is you can lose your job. Your kid won't be able to go to a good school. You won't be able to borrow money, so you won't be able to start a business or buy a home. You won't be able to travel, including on the bus. You have to have, be in good standing with your ID to get on a bus. If you keep it up in China, then they will cut you off from your credit cards and your bank accounts. And if you think that this could never happen in the West, it did happen in Canada to the Canadian truckers,
Right.
where the Canadian government and the banks conspired together to cut these heroic truckers who were protesting vaccine mandates, cut them off from their from their credit cards and bank accounts to break up a First Amendment, or they don't have the First Amendment, but a free speech protest. It should be allowed under their laws. And then if you keep it up in China, they'll just disappear you. And what
Right.
that means is that one day you are no more. No one knows where you are. You're never seen again. And the platform for that, the platform for these digital health IDs that are being rolled out by the World Health Organization can serve as the platform for a China social credit system for the whole world. And even though Tedros says, "Oh, well, this is just to track health," which is bad enough. If you go onto the World Economic Forum website, there's a chart there called the Digital ID chart, and it will show you the full panoply of what they are wanting to do with these digital IDs. What you will be required. You'll have to have a digital ID to do these things. Number one,
Wow.
access healthcare. So no digital ID, or if you're non-compliant, no healthcare. To open a bank account, to travel, to get humanitarian aid. So if you're, an island country hit by a tsunami, you're not going to get, you know, food if you don't have a digital ID. Um,
Wow.
to vote, to pay your taxes, to access government benefits. So, for example, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, to own a communications device like a cell phone or a computer to access social media. And then they also have a category for smart cities, which is a whole nother discussion. But you
Hmm.
have to have digital IDs to enforce smart cities. So this, I would suggest, is the plan for these digital IDs, that they are rolling them out internationally for it with a pretext that people will accept, like, this is protect you on the basis of health. And meanwhile, they're going to use it to force you to have only digital access to all these different aspects of civilized life. And then meanwhile, they're going to be surveilling you, monitoring you, and ultimately they can control you, because if you step out of line, they can shut you out from any or all of those aspects of civilized life. So I'm very concerned about the fact that this is being rolled out by the World Health Organization, and and both in the pandemic treaty, there's a reference to it, but it's very specific in the international health regulations. And
Hmm.
by the way, people comfort themselves by saying, oh, well, the United States has withdrawn from the World Health Organization, so this will not affect us. It will affect us. It will affect us, because if you are required to have one of these digital IDs to travel to another country, you will not be able to go unless you have one. Okay, that's number
Hmm.
one. And then I would like to talk a little bit about the pandemic treaty and some of the horrific things that are in there, are going to affect us. So probably, possibly the worst of all of this is Article 12, the Pathogen Access and Benefit Sharing System, PABS, Pathogen Access and Benefit Sharing System. All right. So what this is the World Health Organization will encourage countries to go out and find pathogens with pandemic potential.
Oh,
Actually,
jeez.
I mean, I don't think they should find. I mean, I think, like, leave it in the jungle, right? Just leave it there.
Jesus.
But no, they're going to go out. They're going to find pathogens with pandemic potential, and then send them to the World Health Organization. Um, which then the World Health Organization will then farm them out to labs all over the world. And the pretext for all of this is, okay, we need to send this to all these different labs, because then all these different labs from different countries will all have the chance to create a vaccine or other therapeutics. That's the benefit sharing. Okay. I mean, the benefit sharing
Hmm.
starts out with that the country who finds this terrible pathogen will get paid for it. I mean, to me, it's like, leave it there. And if you find it,
Right.
quarantine it. Okay. Don't, but then you send it to the World Health Organization, and they send it out all over the world. And so what this does is it greatly increases the chances of lab leaks, of course. And it also greatly increases the chances of these deadly pathogens falling into the hands of bad actors who could use it to launch a bioterrorist attack. So
Reggie, can I stop you for a second? Because
sure,
you just said something that I want to make sure people understand. If I understand you correctly, what the WHO proposes to these countries is that they will become a vector
right.
for pathogens by sending them to labs around the world, which this ties back in to what you were just saying about the potential for lab leaks or bad actors. I just wanted to make sure I understood that correctly. Please continue.
No, you understood it correctly. It's in my opinion, an insane plan. But what are the benefits? Why would anyone do such a thing? Okay.
Right.
Well, number one, the World Health Organization is very compromised in the sense of, number one, it has ties to the Chinese Communist Party, and we've seen that. But then number two, it's heavily influenced by big pharma, because some of the main contributors to the World Health Organization are the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and also an organization called Gavi, which is another vaccine pushing organization. So that if
Mhm.
there's another pandemic, and if vaccines are suggested or required, per the World Health Organization, those pharmaceutical companies will benefit greatly. So this is going to redound greatly to the financial success of the pharmaceutical industry. And by the way, I saw an interview of Bill Gates at the World Economic Forum, in which he said that his return on investments for vaccines was 20 to 1. 20
Mm.
to 1. I don't know anything else that has a 20 to 1 return on investment. So, and then the second thing is that for those countries that are so inclined, if we have this constant stream of pandemics, they can use that as the pretext to quarantine people, shut down business, shut down churches, all of that, and deprive people of their freedom and their constitutional rights. So I think that this is terrible, and it will affect the United States because pathogens know no borders. So if the World Health
Right.
Organization is creating a situation where the world is constantly, having pandemics, one after the next, or maybe simultaneous ones, the United States is going to be affected because people travel outside of the United States, people travel into the United States. We're going to be infected, and it's going to be because of this pathogen access and benefit sharing system. Now, I want to say this. People think that the pandemic treaty is a done deal. It is not a done deal. So the status of it is this.
Hmm.
They approved it in March last month. What does that mean? It means that the 194 countries that came to the World Health Assembly by consensus, although there were countries that were not there. A lot of countries did not attend the meeting, and then there were countries that abstained. But in any case, they by consensus they approved this thing. So what that does is it kicks off two processes. Number one, there is going to be an annex, which is going to spell out the details of the pathogen access and benefit sharing system. And that has not been negotiated yet. It will probably be voted on at next year's World Health Assembly. So if we can raise enough of a ruckus about this PABS system, maybe they will
Mm.
not be able to approve the annex. And then once the annex is approved, if it is approved, then the countries have to go through a ratification process. So if the United States were still in the World Health Organization at that time, we would they would have to go to the Senate. It's a treaty. But other countries have similar processes, and then once 60 countries ratify, then I think 90 days after that, or it might be 30 days. Anyway, it will enter into force. So we have two chances to stop this. Number one has to do with the annex about the PAB system, and number two has to do with the ratification process in the various countries. So it's not a done deal, number one, and number two, regardless of whether the United States is in or out, we are going to be affected by the actions of the World Health Organization.
Right. So, Reggie, it's interesting you mentioned that, because just looking at it on the surface, it felt like, until you shared that this was a done deal. The WHO got it through, and that's that. But what you're saying is that we have two opportunities, at least, to cut this thing off at the pass, which is great news,
Right.
given what they propose to do. So I'm interested, Reggie, before we move on to what the US and Argentina are proposing. I definitely want to get to that. But I'd like to get your thoughts, just hypothetically speaking. Should this get through? Let's say that we can't stop it for some reason. And you've touched on some of this already, but maybe you can give us a summary that people can take away with them so that they understand the urgency of stopping this thing. Let's say this thing gets through, 60 countries say yes, and then it goes into force. The day after that happens, what does the world look like, and what does the US look like?
Okay, RC. That question actually requires a lot of nuance, because the World Health Organization is going forward with this even without it passing.
Whoa.
Okay, so the World Health Organization is working with a Swiss lab that is already doing what the PABS system is set up to do. This is the thing; these guys are completely lawless. So it's not like the world is going to look a certain way the day after it passes. They're already rolling out they started rolling out the digital health IDs in 2023 before they had the authorization through the International Health Regulation Amendments. And they have begun working with this Swiss lab to basically implement the PAB system before they even have the annex is supposed to regulate it, which begs the
Wow.
question, once it passes, let's say that they pass the annex, is this Swiss lab outfit going to be bound by it since it predates it?
Whoa.
I mean, okay. You know that the Bible says in the end times, lawlessness will abound.
Right.
You know, well, the World Health Organization is a lawless organization. I mean, just briefly, for international health regulation amendments, they were required to submit the text that they were going to vote on 4 months in
Hmm.
advance. They they revealed it the same day it was voted on. I don't know if it was even 4 hours in advance.
Wow.
So that's why we just need to withdraw. And President Trump once said in passing, he said the World Health Organization, which deserves to be abolished. I mean, I'm sorry, but I agree with that. Oh,
Hmm.
and so I'm delighted that the United States and Argentina have withdrawn. But we need many more to withdraw from the World Health Organization.
So, Reggie, thank you for that context because I think it's important that people understand the level of lawlessness and why, quote unquote, agencies like this, whether they're foreign or even domestic, are dangerous because they bypass really any rights that you have and they just go on and do whatever they want. And when you keyed in on the fact of, you pose a question, are they going to be covered by this because they predate it? That's an incredibly dangerous place to be in. And I think people, it's important that they're aware of that context. And I'm so glad you said there's some nuance to this and you explained it because that nugget right there, people, you can't fight the battle if you don't understand the battlefield and you don't understand how the enemy operates. It's so critical. So you mentioned, by the way, you mentioned the US and Argentina withdrawing from the WHO. The two countries are up to something that looks to be good. So what's going on there?
Well, RFK Jr. has announced that the United States and Argentina are going to collaborate in creating some kind of an alternative to the World Health Organization. And I don't think there's a lot of detail to that yet, but the vision is that this alternative organization obviously would not have ties to communist China, would not have ties to big pharma, and would genuinely care about the health of the world. And people have said, oh, is it going to be funded? And if we withdraw from the World Health Organization and join this, are we going to be able to, have health and access to therapeutics and all that? I mean, the United States has been the major funder of the World Health Organization. I would assume that we would take all that money and put it into this new organization. Argentina will contribute, other countries will contribute. And I think that it will be well funded and it'll be a situation of free countries collaborating freely to address with integrity the health issues of the world. And I think it's an incredibly exciting project.
Reggie, this is great news. Like, I think that President Trump and others, when they say these things and then we step up and do them, it sends a strong message. In the first administration, President Trump said, look, we're funding this thing. You guys aren't paying. You're not carrying your weight. We're out. And then magically, what happened? All of these groups magically found money and started paying in because they're like, oh boy, dad said that we need to do something or we're going to get in trouble. It is good to see people saying enough. Like, we're going to go and we're going to attempt to do this the right way. The World Health Organization does not run the world, even though they and the WEF and the UN with their sustainable development goals would certainly like that to be the case, obviously with the help of the Chinese Communist Party and China. But it's good to see that there's a pushback against that for a change. Yes.
Oh, I'm so delighted. And it wouldn't be happening without President Trump. I mean, if the election had gone the other way, we would be
Mm,
living in a totalitarian biotech police surveillance state right now. But the fact that President Trump was elected gives us a fighting chance. We have to, okay, it's going to be really hard. This is not like,
right.
oh, Trump was elected, so now I can just, enjoy my summer and not worry about it. No, the globalists have marched forward with ferocity, and we have
Hmm.
a chance to fight back. But we have to take this opportunity and do that. If we just sit around and do nothing, first of all, there's no guarantee. We have no idea who's going to be elected in the next election.
Right.
We have to make major progress now. And by the way, in terms of that, President Trump withdrew us by means of executive order, which is all he can do. All right. But the next president can put us right back in by executive order if he or she is so inclined. So what we need is legislation, an act of Congress that negates our original agreement to enter the World Health Organization and takes us out on a permanent basis. So I would urge everybody to go to my website, which is antiglobalist.net. It's just antiglobalist, one word, .net. And on there, you'll find two things. One is the manifesto, which I would ask you to read and sign. And if you do that, then that will put you on my email list, my newsletter list. But then the other one is at the upper right hand, there's a red button saying take action. Click that. And the first action, the one on the left, is something that you can do to send an email to your congressional representatives saying, please, we need legislation to take the World Health Organization out on a permanent basis. So please sign that, because I think that most legislators, they're so busy, they're not even aware of this, they're not thinking about it, but they will be aware of it and they will think about it if they see that their constituents care about it.
Squeaky wheel gets the oil, right, Reggie?
Absolutely, especially when it comes to the Congress. Yeah.
Reggie, thank you so much. I think that this is a deep dive in a compact form that allows people to get the context, understand the battlefield, what we can do, what happens if we don't, but also what's being done and the things that we can get behind, including the great work that you're doing. So your website's one more time, please.
Antiglobalist.net. That's ANTIGLOBALIST.net. So please come and sign the manifesto and sign the action to get legislation taking us out of the WHO permanently.
Yeah, Julianne and I have done that, and we encourage you to join us in supporting Reggie and her great work. Reggie Littlejohn, thank you so much for joining us on the Watchmen Brief.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a really great interview.